David, this is very serious, is it not? I mean, not only are we learning that these MPs today are being told you will be targets for serious cyber attacks from Beijing, we also find out that they've been joining in with Russia to add to all these conspiracy theories about Kate. And today the government is announcing officially that in 2021, when 40 million British social media users had their accounts compromised, hacked from Beijing, we will officially name China as the perpetrator of that illegal attack. So this cyber attacking by China, and indeed Russia, but particularly by China, is getting worse and worse and worse, isn't it?
It appears to be, Kevin, Kevin and Alex. Yes, it appears to be. You know, that they hacked into the Electoral Commission here in the UK and accessed a number of files. This is very, very serious. You know, it's data. It should be protected. I don't think China's just picking on the UK. I think we're looking at this within Europe. I know France and Germany have been victims of China allegedly hacking into systems and accessing data. Also with the US, and we have to be very careful, and even ourselves, even on your social media, things like TikTok, that is a Chinese company. And it's quite strange, I always find it strange that if the state says, well, we'd like some personal data and keep things safe, people are suspicious of that. But they've done something like TikTok, which is a Chinese company, and quite happily give all information about themselves to TikTok and these companies. And you're quite right with Russia as well. And something, you know, what sanctions can we impose? What impact will these sanctions have? China is quite happy to keep going, as we've seen with the Putin government and Russia, quite happy to try and destabilize democratic, certainly when we get to elections, the democratic process.
It's interesting. We were, Kevin and I, privately during the break just discussing social media, because I've always been of the sort of extreme viewpoint of pull the plug on it, it's dangerous. America's basically invented a sort of weapon of mass destruction, which is usually used to point back at America. What we do know is that at the very least, you get coordination of rent-a-mobs online, you get the grooming of terrorists, you get the propagation of extremist material. Perhaps at the sort of, even sharper edge of all of this, you have the mass manipulation of social attitudes, and that, as you said, platforms such as TikTok are potentially being used by foreign actors for nefarious purposes against our country. What do we need to do about this? Because it seems to me .com has more power than God in the 21st century.
Well, the issue, Alex, is trying to stop companies. I mean, we can look at other companies like Gab, which is Russian, which promotes free freedom of expression. I know that sounds as though it's a hyperbole there between that, but what they're saying literally is there's very little sanction on it. There's very little supervision, and there's nothing. It's very, very difficult if the server's not in the UK for this government to legislate against it. So what do we do? Do we put more sanctions on Russia? Do we put more sanctions on China? And you look at how certainly China, with not just its social media, but in other areas, are trying to infiltrate globally economic areas, and that's a big concern, where you're trying to undermine the economic stability of states. So we have to. You are quite right. This sort of .com is very difficult to police, but the way to police it, I'm talking about in its generic terms, is for states to work together, and sort of start saying to the likes of China and Russia, this is how we will deal with it. This is how we will sanction yourself. This is the impact this will have. So let's start hacking and looking into our process. But what concerns me is what we saw in 2016, both in the States and with the referendum, how influential hacking can be, because people don't fact check. They'll just see a headline and believe it.
One thing, David, we all sit here all sort of injured and, oh, look, they're cyber attacking us. Why don't they leave us alone? This is terrible. They're undermining our democracy. Presumably we do the same to them, do we? Do we bombard them with cyber attacks as well? Don't tell me we don't.
I think, how can I put this? There will be departments who protect the interest of the UK abroad, will certainly be monitoring and looking at any online activity that could seriously affect the UK. So yes, there is monitoring that's going on, because you also, you have to look at how countries are operating, and then it's looking at what threats can be posed to ourselves. But what you're seeing with certainly the likes of China and Russia is absolute carte blanche. They seem, if you like, don't care what the reaction will be. They're trying to protect their interests, and their interest is to undermine Europe, the European Union, and the states has a liberal democracy. Anyone who they perceive as a threat. Yes, so we will monitor and see what threats are to ourselves. But I don't think it's certainly not on the scale we're seeing the likes of China.
All right. Thank you very much, David. Good to talk to you as always.
Yeah, thanks, David.